Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 8th of January 2025. These are the stories that we will be deciphering during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Middle East situation, day 458 of the Israel-Palestine conflict, war, genocide, crimes against humanity, you name it, and it is there. The fact is that the number of casualties keeps on increasing, and of course, if you just look at the last 24 hours, around 51 people have been killed, butchered by the Israelis in Palestine. This said, the humanitarian situation of the Palestinians is also quite dire, with the total lack of health facilities, water, food, and basic necessities of life. The Israelis are bombarding even the shelters where the Palestinians are staying, and that is what is leading to even more casualties. To add to that, there is some light at the end of the tunnel in the hope of a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Palestine, but the fact remains that there is nothing certain as of yet. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Canada and the US and the relations between the two that have seen their ups and downs, but of recent, with the comments and statements by Donald Trump, it seems that all is not well between Canada and the US. We'll try to understand what went wrong between the two, and why is Donald Trump really adamant on making Canada the 51st US state. This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about the Earth rotation day that is being observed across the world today. It takes roughly 24 hours, as you very well know. You must have, learnt it in your middle school and high school, for the Earth to complete one full rotation, which is the length of a day exactly. So today we are celebrating that. Then a Brazilian nun, Ina Canabaro, has now been recognized as the world's oldest living human being at the age of 116. 116, can you imagine that? This has happened after the oldest living person passed away in December last year. Finally, our last story concerns headphones. Now, these headphones, as you can very well see in the image, are not for listening to music, but for cleaning your ears, and cleaning your ears in a very innovative manner. This is what we are going to talk about in our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Middle East situation, and of course, what has been happening not only in Palestine, but also in the environs. We've been joined by Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti. She's a foreign affairs analyst, and she's right here with us in the studios. Dr. Saeed, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saeed, let's talk about the condemnations that have come from Jordan and from Qatar as well. Now, this is on the historic maps of Israel that have been published by official accounts that are affiliated with the occupation government, which include parts of the Palestinian territories as well as Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Why is Israel doing this at this stage? And why is it, wreaking the ire of so many other countries with whom it has more or less correct relations, like Jordan, like Qatar? Why is it doing so now? Is it also part of the greater Israeli plan?
Thank you, Omar. Yes, it is the part of the greater Israel concept. They are trying to make the other people understand and keep in mind that we are going to do that in the future. And this is not just a kind of a mistake, if they would say, or they would say, okay, this happened without noticing it. It is actually a deliberate step they took, and these kind of steps has been taken by all the colonial settlers throughout the history as well. We have seen that in 2014, when Russia tried to occupy Armenia, and it did that, and Russia on the same time, a few days back, Russia showed that Armenia in its map. And similarly, we have seen that Nagorno-Karabakh incidents, and they are both Armenia and Azerbaijan, they are showing the map in their official maps, and that's the actually that's the disputed territory. But that has been done by the colonial settlers. Those have the greater agendas, and they are trying to make a life miserable for the people living in their neighborhood. That's what Israel is doing. As far as the Qatar's role as condemnation is very important. Qatar has been playing a very strong mediator's role in greater Middle Eastern, and even was the part of US Taliban peace deal. Qatar has been a good mediator, and their role is important. They are working on it, but the thing is that once they are going for the ceasefire and going for the exchange of the prisoners, there is no confidence. Both of the parties are not having that kind of strong confidence on each other, and we have seen that there is a stalemate. No ceasefire, no exchange of prisoners, nothing. They are not trying to preserve that humanitarian assistance they should be taking, and the UNSC Security Council's agenda they should be looking forward. They are not doing anything. anything.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the US and its policy vis-a-vis Israel. First of all, let's talk about the statement of Donald Trump, who again issues a stern warning of repercussions in the Middle East if Hamas does not release the Israeli captives. This is what you were talking about as well. By the time he takes office, this is something that he has already stated beforehand as well. When he is asked by reporters what kind of intervention is he talking about, he says, "Do I have to define it for you?" What do you understand by this? Why is Donald Trump threatening Palestine?
Remember when there were elections going on and the whole world was very anticipating and hoping for Trump so that he can come and bring peace in Middle East. That was the agenda, and that's on the basis of
He said he was anti-war.
Yeah, he said that there were two kind of observations by the international community and the intellectuals for the Trump. And one was that he's a deal maker, but now we know that he might be the deal maker, but he's not the peacemaker. And the other thing is that he is unpredictable. He can do anything in any circumstance, and that's, we are looking into so many things in Canada's policies, and even he's not good with his neighbors as well. He's changing the policies, and similarly is the agenda for the Middle East is changing with every phase of time, and that's really disturbing because if you want to have a credible position on international forum, you should play a strong mediator and peacemaker's role. And America has been claiming to have that role throughout the history, but now it's not clear. And then there is another thing, that Trump's nominees for his cabinet, they are having strong anti-Palestinian agenda. Marco Rubio,
exactly.
or Mike Watt, and
Mike Huckabee,
yes, and Elisa Stefanik, she is a US ambassador to UN. All of them, they are
such strong stances,
yes,
such anti peace stances, let's put it that way, or very, very pro-Israel stances, to put it very bluntly. So I don't know if this is the cabinet that Donald Trump is going to come with, and these are the statements that he's giving.
Absolutely.
I don't know what he's going to exactly talk about. As talking about Palestine and the brutalities, every time that you are here, we talk about new deaths, we talk about new injuries, and here today is no exception. 51 people have been killed, in the last 24 hours. Children, women make the majority of that. Entire families have been wiped out as we speak. 45,880 plus people have been killed, and around 109,000 plus people have been injured. And these are just, circumstantial numbers. The real numbers will come once the war actually ends. How do you, and then the children that are dying of hypothermia because of the cold, 8 children, and infants are being killed. A 15-day-old infant was killed today, Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti. I fail to understand, where has the humanity gone?
Well, I want to add another thing as well in that is the 1,000 humanitarian, the people who were providing humanitarian assistance.
1,057.
Yes. And then there were journalists as well. In international media was there, and they were, I think, the
220
plus. 220 plus, yeah. So it's a kind of, they are not taking care of any human life that is there. And the agenda of the Netanyahu is, from the day one, that was the total victory, absolute war till the absolute victory. And that is something he is working on it, and genocide is happening over there. And once we look into the humanitarian assistance, even the human rights organization, they are showing their concern, they are showing their reservation on it, because their own people, when they are working over there in their hospitals, in their humanitarian systems they are providing, and they are being targeted without taking care of them. So this is something international community should be looking into, but yet we are not ready to take a strong stance on on Palestine. Why? Because probably for the international community there is no strong agenda, there is no strong benefit for them in Palestine, and somehow they are trying to take Netanyahu's narrative on their mind, and they are working on it. And even Trump, who took the votes from his own people on this agenda that he is going to bring peace, he is not ready to do that. He completely changed his stance after that.
Well, with this cabinet there, and we'll actually see after the 20th of January as to what he decides as far as the Middle East is concerned. fuel supplies are dwindling. That is why the hospitals are also being closed to once, slowly and steadily. A lot of the hospitals are already not working, Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha, because they have been bombarded. And the few that remain are almost in non-working conditions. Can this be handled, or do you feel that the situation has more or less gotten out of control?
Yeah, situation is out of control, and the reason is that international community is not serious about it. They are targeting hospitals as well. Kamal Kadwa Hospital, that was being targeted recently, and the patients were actually present over there, and they gave almost, I think, for 5 to 10 minutes for the evacuation, and it couldn't be happen. And then we have, when we look into the statistics, there are around 1 lakh of the patients, they are seriously injured, and 25% of them, they are not having the access to the medical facilities. And then the international health organizations, they are claiming that we are going to take 10 to 12 years to look after all these patients, and yet the work has not yet been started, because nobody is ready to take that precious life in consideration and to take care of them.
Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha, but on the one hand, we've got extremely pro-Israeli members of the cabinet, of the future cabinet of Donald Trump. On the other hand, Trump's chief negotiator, who's the Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, says a lot of progress has been made in the ongoing peace talks between both the sides as he returns to Doha in the coming days, and I think in a couple of days as well. The US Secretary of State has also told reporters in South Korea that Washington wants to see a ceasefire deal in Gaza concluded in the next 2 weeks, that is before this current Joe Biden government ends. Is there any possibility of a ceasefire agreement?
They don't. The Hamas and Israeli government, they don't trust each other. Like they issued the prisoners, 36 prisoners list, and then they asked those
34.
prisoners, 34, and they asked them for their release. Yet they are not, on the same page for their release. And then there are some the leaders of the Hamas, and they are asking for their release, and they are not ready. Israeli government is not ready to release those leaders. So there is a kind of disagreement between them. And then there is another thing that recently Hezbollah and government of Israel, they came on an agreement and truce signed. Yet
that truce has been flouted many times by Israel.
Exactly. So that's what the government of the Lebanese government, they are also saying, that we don't trust you, because we gave you the 60 days time, and yet you are still there. So these are some kind of...
Well, there are some areas where the Israeli forces have withdrawn, and where the Lebanese forces are now taking over. Nevertheless, the fact is that a lot has happened in these days.
Exactly.
Also, as far as the survivors in Gaza, those who are still alive, and I hope will stay alive, they are being put in a statement by Tom Fletcher, who's the United Nations Relief Chief. He says efforts to save these lives is at a breaking point because of continued Israeli attacks on aid workers, including an assault on the World Food Programme convoy last Sunday. And he said that the collapse of law and order is really penultimate as far as Gaza is concerned. Is it possible to prevent the collapse of Gaza's health system in your point of view, or is it already too late?
It's never too late, but the international community, they need to understand the seriousness of the situation over there. That is the real deal of the time. They should understand that how severe this matter is, and how quickly they should look after it. But they indulge in their own political agendas, and they are not looking into it. That's really unfortunate.
A lot of other people are also giving similar statements. For example, President of the Doctors Without Borders, Paula Gill, also shares a concern about the humanitarian situation. She says there are no more squares, no more schools, no more places for children to play or families to gather. She talks about the hypocrisy and complicity of Israel's allies. Now, that is an important point. That is allowing the social fabric of Gaza to be destroyed with impunity. What's your take on that?
There are two things in it. Once we are talking about the schools, okay, schools are not there, and 1.2 billion students are out of school. But the basic human needs, they are food, shelter,
water,
life, water,
medicine,
sanitation, medicine. They are not being provided with these basic humanities, and you're talking about education. And this is really interesting. And there is another thing I want to add, that is there are two things. One is international organizations, international humanitarian lobbying, they are concerned. But those who should take the strong agenda, the decision-making process, they are the part of it. They are the governments. Governments are not ready. They have their own non-human political agendas, so they are not taking care of the concerns of those international organizations, humanitarian lobbying. They are trying to make them understand that you should work on it.
Is Israel using starvation as a weapon of war?
Yeah. And it has been done throughout the history as well, and there are so many incidences. And we being the people of the subcontinent, we have faced the starvation as well when we were colony, and that's still there in our history. And so there are so many incidences in which the colonial settlers did try to starve the people, so that Netanyahu has that idea of the genocide in his mind, and he is implementing it, and through by hook or by crook. And he has trapped the people in the Gaza, and they actually want them to die over here, so that no more they can create no more problem for him in the future.
I understand. Also, I mean, coming back to US, the US is the main backer as far as Israel is concerned. That is what everybody says, and that is what we all see as well. US Senator Bernie Sanders speaks out against the Biden administration decision to approve $8 billion in new arms sale. In August last year, Washington had also approved a separate package worth $20 billion. Then in November, there is another approval of $680 million for weaponry, advanced weaponry for Israel to bombard Palestine, of course, for what else, or other countries. How do you see that? I mean, on the one hand, they talk about peace deals, brokering peace deals. You remember Joe Biden had talked about a 3-phase deal in the very beginning that was never accepted by Israel. Then now they are all talking about this ceasefire deal that will happen in the next 2 weeks time. But on the other hand, they are supplying Israel with the same weaponry, deadly weaponry worth billions of dollars that leads to the extinction or killing of more and more people in Palestine. Well, why this duplicity?
Well, that's we should talk about it, that who is more hypocrite, the Republicans or the Democrats? Because we were thinking, okay, Republicans are going to make things different, but both of the sides, even either it's the Democrats or the Republicans, they are on the same agenda. One is supplying the arms, but trying to talk about the that diplomatic language of peace deals and the ceasefire. On the other hand, we have Trump. He is bluntly saying that, okay, I'm going to make it hell. So this
maybe
is
both parties, as far as Israel is concerned, is more or less the two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, absolutely.
One is more discreet, one is more open.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Also, let's move. You had talked about Lebanon. Let's talk a little bit about that as well. Imran Raza, who's a United Nations humanitarian coordinator in Lebanon, says that a lot of funding is required in the hundreds of millions of dollars to sustain life and the basic necessities of life in Lebanon, to prevent further deterioration of the already dire circumstances. What needs to be done in your point of view in the long term as far as Lebanon is concerned? Will the world come to the aid like it did, quote unquote, for Palestine?
No. It's complete no, because again the international community, they don't work on the humanitarian agendas. They work on their own political agendas, their own long-term gains, and for them the long-term game inside the Lebanon is to support Israel. So that's what they are doing over here. And somehow that the situation in the Middle East is crucial, is actually looking for full support, cooperation from the international community, but international community is not ready to support it, because they have somehow looking toward their own agendas, their own understanding, their own cooperation, strategic interests, and that's that for them.
Lebanon, you were talking about the 60 days and thing. I just wanted to say that Lebanon's army has begun deploying units to settlements, as I told you earlier, vacated by the Israeli forces in the east and in the center of the country. Also, Lebanese Prime Minister has informed international sponsors of this truce deal between Israel and Hezbollah that Israel continues to violate the Lebanese army, this deal, and of course the units that are present are being attacked by the Israeli forces. At the same time, the US envoy Amos Hochstein says that the Israeli military will withdraw completely from South Lebanon, but he does not specify when it will happen. You remember, the whole thing, as you said, is 60 days. They have to completely vacate the area within 60 days.
But
that is really not happening. 27th of November is when the ceasefire agreement was signed. 392 incidents have happened since then that have breached the same ceasefire agreement. What, in your point of view, is going to happen now as far as Lebanon is concerned?
In that Hezbollah and Israel, there's truce. The cooperation, they want, even if they want to do the cooperative environment, they want to do work on it, they cannot, because the confidence building is not there. They again, this truce is not going to be successful. Israel has been violating so many ceasefires before that. I think 9 or 10 ceasefires even during this time when the issue of Lebanon started. And then those areas has been shown in the official map of Israel as well. So you can look into the agenda. Okay, at one point you are showing those areas in your official map, and on the other place you are trying to bring the ceasefire. So it shows the hypocrisy of Israel, and it shows the agenda is different. Probably they are trying to make a world understand, okay, we are working on your opinion, or we are trying to bring a lesser evil to the Middle East, but the actual agenda is different, and that is evident in their official map.
I can understand. Also, when it comes to Syria, we see that it's a more complicated situation than, say, Lebanon or even Palestine, because there are more forces at play for and against the current administration that is present there. Israel has also seized more territory in Syria's Golan Heights. Now, this also tears apart another 50-year-old agreement that was made between Israel and Syria. Israel's far-right ministers say that their country's borders should extend further to Damascus, and this is also part of the greater Israeli plan as well. What, in your point of view, will happen eventually as far as Syria is concerned vis-a-vis Israel?
The whole Syria is a battleground, and sometimes we say that your geography and your geopolitics and your position on the map is your blessing, but sometimes it becomes curse. And for the Syria, sometimes I think, okay, it's somehow curse for the Syria, because so many international actors are involved, and you cannot figure out that who is going to win this time. We have seen that now this time the current government that has been considered as a terrorist organization, now they are ruling on Syria, and now they are being supported by the America and the Israelis as well. They are trying to have the negotiation with each other. And then we have Turkey being supported, they are being supported by the Turkey as well. But America is supporting another Kurdish organization as well, and they are somehow in a conflict in Syria. And there are two more factors, that is Russia and China. They are sitting quietly and just observing and waiting for their time.
A lot of political movement happening as far as Syria is concerned. It's more complicated, but nevertheless, I think it all stems from Palestine. Once peace comes to Palestine is when peace might come to Lebanon. But this is what we are not seeing as far as Israel is concerned, because this does not board as part of its greater plan, as has been shown in the map, as has been,
Yeah, and yes, and it started from the day when Israel started getting settled over there. So Israel is the troublemaker. Before that, they were all living peacefully.
True. Thank you so very much, Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, foreign affairs analyst, to have joined us. And we have discussed so many things in a very short time. I think this has been one of my best segments as far as, the number of points that we have discussed during this short time. Thank you very much, Dr. Gul.i.Ayesha Bhatti, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story. And our second story concerns Canada-US relations. Now, Canada and the US, ladies and gentlemen, are each other's partners, trading partners at least. $3.6 billion worth of goods and services crossing the border daily. They have a $1 trillion trade partnership. But there have been certain skirmishes of late as far as Donald Trump and his statements and Canada is concerned. Now, to discuss more on that, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. Mark Meirowitz, who's a political analyst, joins us from the US. Mark, hey, good to see you after a very long time, and a happy new year, a bit belated, but nevertheless. Shazia Malik, political analyst, joins us from Canada. Shazia, thank you very much to you as well, and belated happy new year to you and your loved ones as well. We'll begin with you, Mark. Mark, what is this Trump rhetoric about Canada being made the 51st state, and what does it signify in your point of view about his approach to international relations, especially vis-a-vis Canada?
Look, Canada is the greatest friend of the United States. We love Canada. My first trip on an airplane was Air Canada. We had close family friends in Montreal. So no question, Canadians and Americans love each other. But it's kind of a little bit of a friendship that has some competition and little things between us. And I think, and we can talk about this some more, but I think Canadians have always felt, and I'm saying this sincerely, a certain element of insecurity against that big, gigantic United States. And years ago, there was a whole brouhaha about American magazines. Canadians put regulations on to prevent American investment. I even worked on one of these FIRA applications for an American company. There were all sorts of issues between us, but at the same time, as President Trump pointed out, Canada's our greatest trade partner. We take millions and billions of dollars, cars, milk, you name it. So that's the context we're talking about. Then we have Trump. Now, Trump is a change maker. He's a reality buster. He won a presidency that nobody ever thought twice that he could win even once. Okay? So let's understand what he's really talking about. He talks about Greenland. He talks about Panama. He talks about Canada as the 51st state. Now, what he's trying to get, and the tariffs against Canada, and I would say there is zero chance, and I mean zero chance, the United States is ever going to put punitive tariffs on Canada. But as soon as he talked about it, the government of Trudeau fell down, which was much deserved for the Canadian people to finally get rid of this incompetent leader. I'll give you a statistic, Omar. From 2014 to 2022, the Fraser Institute in Vancouver says Canada had the third lowest average annual GDP growth rate per capita in the 30-nation Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. That's in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. That tells you something about the leadership of this Liberal Party in Canada. It has been a miserable failure. And, again, Canada's going to become the 51st state. I mean, is that realistic? Zero on that one. But at the same time, Trump is challenging our allies and also countering and fighting our adversaries. That's a two-pronged.
All right. I'll go to Shazia on that. Shazia, being a Canadian, I'd like to understand, how do you take such, statements from Donald Trump concerning Canada annexing it? As it might be serious, it might be not, but he has repeated the statement many a times. How do Canadians take it?
Well, we take it more as a joke. It's absolutely not possible. And there are a lot of things interlinked between Canada and US. So what Mr. Trump is saying, it's absolutely not possible. Yes, I mean, of course, they think, Mr. Trump thinks that he is not going to be anymore the ATM of Canada. But then there are a lot of, interest linked, for example, in the auto sector, for example, and all these tariffs that he talks about, they are all going to kill all these initiatives between the two countries. I mean, the two countries have an the trade volume of 8.2 billion. On daily basis, 2.5 billion, trade, goods and services exchange take place at the border. So, it can just be a rhetoric, like when you started talking about this topic. I don't think so. This is going to have any effect. Canada is a very sovereign country. How can you, in a democracy, talk about taking over a country when you are saying that you are the biggest Democrat of the world, right? And also the thing is that as soon as the Trudeau government, they had their problems, but as soon as they heard about Mr. Trump coming in, they went to Mar-a-Lago to exchange some pleasantries, and there he was called Governor Trudeau, which was very, very rude, I thought. But now what the Trudeau government has done, they have set up a committee with the intergovernmental minister that we have, Mr. Dominic LeBlanc, and our foreign affairs minister, Miss Melanie Joly, and they are working on this also because they said that there is a problem at the border, and that is why I'm putting these tariffs. So already the Trudeau government, I mean, at the moment it's not really working. The parliament is prorogued, but still they put then when they met Mr. Trump, $1.3 billion worth of border security and all those things. Now, what has happened for all this rhetoric? Mexico even has started, blaming Canada, and the president there, Claudia, says that, oh yes, Canada has a very big fentanyl problem, but ma'am, what about your own narco business that has been going on for years and years? So I mean, that is the problem. But this fight will have a problem with the supply chain that Canada and US is going to have. But we have heard this thing before also. In the first Trump presidency, when he came and he said, oh, he's going to, put tariffs on timber and steel and steel and these not really timbers, but steel definitely. And then he said that, oh, I'm going to put tariffs on your auto sector. People said that this is some kind of madness because he perhaps does not understand how the two countries are linked with the, as far as the auto sector is concerned. So this cannot go like this. And then we saw nothing happen. At that time, we had our trade minister as, this Miss Freeland, who was then just resigned recently in December, and she was the finance minister and deputy prime minister. So she negotiated a very, very good deal. So when it comes to actuals, things change. I think at the moment, Mr. Trump is just using all these excuses, all these as threats, and to when they sit on the negotiating table, he thinks that he is going to press Canada for a better deal because he's a deal maker, as you know.
But Mark has said, that is what Mark has said. And Mark, I'm going to come to you. What about this tariffs that Donald Trump is also talking about vis-a-vis Canada and also Mexico, that Shazia has also alluded to? Do you think that will actually happen, the 25% that he talks about?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything Ms. Malik said. I think she is our colleague, our friend. A Canadian is immediately our friend. Just as I feel when I go to Canada, I feel I'm among friends. We have the longest peaceful border in the world. We are been friends and allies since forever. So that's not the issue. The issue is that I think, again, Canadians and many others, even Americans, misunderstand Trump. And the Democrats still misunderstand him, and maybe the Canadians misunderstand what is this guy getting at and what is the elixir of his politics. And by the way, if you talked about Chrystia Freeland, for example, she's a very able politician who Trudeau demoted. He wanted to demote her, so she resigned. And then how about the fact that Trudeau prorogued the parliament all the way to March rather than calling new elections now so that the country of Canada can get back on course? He is a complete loser and incompetent as a politician. He's not even the slightest little reflection of his great father, zero. And I spent a lot of time years ago, I was representing Canadian companies and trying to understand, we were helping them to understand American politics. And at that time, you talked about the softwood lumber. A lot of this stuff has been going on for a long time. But the new thing that goes into the soup is Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has a different mixture of politics. And what he's doing with an ally, and it's true, it's very, very, challenging. But the Canadian people, I think, Trudeau, they're throwing him out. Okay, you see that? In 5 minutes, he's out the door. He went to Mar-a-Lago like a complete penitent to go to Trump and beg him for help, which is, so sad that it's just laughable. And Pierre-Paul Poilievre, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly in my French studies.
Yeah, Poilievre.
Poilievre, it seems like a very good guy. And as a matter of fact, he uses two words that obviously Trudeau is lacking, which is common sense. Trudeau has no common sense.
But
he is
but Mark Poilievre also says that Canada will never be the 51st state, period, quote unquote. We are a great and independent country, quote unquote.
I didn't hear you.
You got so enthusiastic you didn't listen to his question.
I couldn't even hear what he said. It's Skype.
But I said, no,
What
no,
was your question,
I
Omar?
was adding to what Polev said, because you were talking about Polev being a
Yes.
man with common sense. He has also stated, quote unquote, that Canada will never be the 51st state and that we are a great and independent country. I just wanted to quote Polev as well, when you were, talking about him having being a person, a politician with great abilities. So I just wanted to, that his point of
that's his
view
tweet.
as
He
far as
tweeted
this
that.
is also the same.
No, I totally agree with what he says. I mean, it's completely, as Ms. Malik, Shazia says, it's totally unrealistic. It makes absolutely no sense. And Trump can put maps on Twitter or Truth Social with a map of North America, with Canada part of the United States. Look, I mean, we have a long history. I teach American history also. We have a long history with Canada, with the British in Canada. We fought a Revolutionary War. We have a lot of things in common. Our history is very, very combined. But we're friends, and we're not going to make Canada 51st state. Nevertheless, Trump is trying to be what I think a businessman. He's saying we spend billions, 200 billion for security for Canada. We have all these things we're doing for our economy. I've got to do something on the economy here in the United States. So he shakes it up and he says 25% tariffs. Suddenly, all the politicians, including Doug Ford in Ontario, and all of the politicians in Canada, suddenly awake from slumber and start to be reactive against Trump. That is not the way to deal with Trump, with all due respect. Try to understand what he's saying.
Mark, what is the way to deal with Trump, as far as, say, I was from Canada and I had to deal with Trump. I am the new premier. How should I deal with Trump in order to foster a stronger, broader relationship and come out of this, this current tension-like situation between the two countries?
Well, I mean, I like to hear my colleague, but Mexico. Oh my God! The minute he said he was going to put tariffs on Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum immediately said, "Oh my God! We're going to do this. We're going to stop the migration. We're going to do this, do that." No, I mean, this has effect. It has impact, and actually, amazingly, Omar and Shazia, it actually gets results. It doesn't get the exact result
Shazia,
he's
what's your
asking
take?
for. It gets results.
Shazia, what's your take on that?
Yes, like I just said, that the Trudeau government has put in place a $1.3 billion, security cover plan, and I mean, of course, in a few days, there was a plan of Mr. Dominic LeBlanc and Ms. Melanie Joly to go and talk to the team, the Trump team over there in US. So definitely everybody is going to sit down and talk this out. Like I just said, that even last time a lot of tariffs were talked about, and Mr. Trump tried to threaten us, but then nothing happened really, because there's a lot of linkage, especially in the supply chain management between the two countries. So the effects are going to be not only disastrous for Canada, if in fact these tariffs are put in, they are going to be disastrous for some of the US districts as well. And that is why they have to be very, very cautious. Now, the new Secretary of Defense, Mr. Fitzgerald, who is coming up, he might be, facing might be asking some hard questions from Canada, but Canada is going to be absolutely ready for that. The team has already started working on it. I think Canada now knows how to deal with Mr. Trump. For the first time when he came, there was a lot of unpredictability connected with it. Now he has become a very predictable person for Canada. Also, there are USMCA, this deal between US, Canada, and Mexico is in place, with which Mr. Trump was not really completely happy. So I think, like I said earlier, that he is trying to renegotiate better these things, and that is why he's telling them that I'm going to put tariffs, so that both borders, like the Mexico border and the Canada border, they just pull up their sleeves and start working on it. I mean, of course, Mark has just talked about our Ontario Premier Doug Ford as well. He also has put in a plan, and he said that we are going to be very strict on the border. The border problem is, Trudeau government gets a lot of bad name for this, but you will be surprised to know the ads that we have started seeing here in Canada. There are actually ads saying that if you want to enter illegally, in US, we are the best people who can do this. And our, Indian friends from Indian Punjab, they have created, havoc over here. You know that even in 2023 there was a huge scandal on which even the Indian government has put in an investigation. The Patel family, the husband and wife and 2 kids, they were frozen to death on the border while crossing the Canada-US border. So these are some of the people. Not only Indians are involved in this illegal crossings, there are others also who constantly cross, and that creates problems. But now, just yesterday, I was looking and listening to CBSA, which is our border security, that they are setting up centers. So they are going to process everything on, the border to see who is entering. And they are saying that we are going to be very strict. And they have, the Canadian government has already ordered for drones on the border to stop all those things. So as far as Canada is concerned, we are prepared. We know how to negotiate with Mr. Trump. However, the new commerce minister, how difficult he's going to be, that remains to be seen.
All right, Mark, last question to you. Trump also, we've seen the effect that it has had on Canada, and you might be right in saying that it has maybe jolted up the Canadian government in taking certain measures vis-a-vis border security and other important issues that maybe Trump has managed. But Trump also says that the US subsidizes Canada to the tune of $200 billion in trade and spends billions more in continental defense programs like NORAD than Canada, who he said doesn't essentially have a military. He said, quote unquote, we don't need their cars, we don't need their lumber, we don't need anything they have, we don't need their dairy products. Why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? What's your take? I'd like a short answer.
I mean, it's a friendly discussion among friends, and I think the tenor of our discussion today proves with Shazia and Ms. Malik that Canada and America can get together. It's very simple. Trump is an unknown to many around the world, including our allies. But the ones who should be really worrying are the adversaries of the United States, like Iran and others, who are the adversaries, the malevolent adversaries. They should really worry. Our friends in Canada know we are deeply friends and that we mean the best for our relationship and our alliance, but I'm sure our competent leaders on both sides can sit down and figure it out. And Marco Rubio is certainly going to be a terrific Secretary of State, working with his counterpart in Canada on the common goal of keeping the North American continent free and democratic. And, I love, by the way, the last point, I love the Canadian Parliament. It's lively, they applaud. It's absolutely wonderful to watch. And you know what? It's a democracy like ours. And, oh, Canada, I'm all for it. So there you go.
All right, Shazia, what's your parting comment as far as all of this is concerned? Do you feel that this is just a small phase and things will be eventually sorted out between the two countries?
Absolutely. That's what I was asking Mark, and that's what I'm asking you now. Do you watch this Netflix show, The Diplomat? Omar? Or Mark?
No.
Okay. If you watch that, you will see soon that
short answer, we're short of time.
Yeah. Diplomacy will seep in. As simple as that.
All right, diplomacy will seep in, and of course, a lot of hard facts, a lot of hard statements taken up by Trump vis-a-vis Canada. How will Canada react in the long term, in the short term? This is something we will see in the coming days as well. Thank you very much, Mark Meirowitz, joining us all the way from the US. And thank you very much, Shazia Malik, joining us all the way from Canada to talk about the Canada-US relations in the circumstances of these statements by Donald Trump. Thank you very much to both of my guests. Let's end today's show with the 3 stories very quickly. Earth Rotation Day is being observed today. The day celebrates the rotation of the Earth on its axis, which is crucial for defining the time and shape of life. As I told you in the beginning of the show, it takes roughly 24 hours for Earth to complete one full rotation, defining the length of a day, and that is what we observe today as the Earth Rotation Day. Second, born in 1908, ladies and gentlemen, Brazilian nun Ina Canabaro has been recognized as the world's oldest living person at the age of 116. The Guinness World Records on the 4th of January officially declared that she is now the oldest living woman, because the oldest living person before her, Tomiko Ituka, has passed away. she still is vibrant, she still talks, she still manages her life at 116. Can you imagine that? And all of this data has been confirmed by LongevQuest, which is an organization that keep records of people over 110 years. So now Ina Canabaro, who is a Brazilian nun, becomes the oldest living person on the planet. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about headphones. Headphones normally we use to listen to music and to also make our own space in a crowd sometimes, and sometimes in a bus, sometimes in a train. But these headphones that we are showing you right now, that were premiered at the CES 2025 in the US, are not for playing music but for cleaning your ears in a very effective manner. There's a camera that attaches itself, and through Bluetooth you can watch things on your mobile phone and see how you are exactly cleaning your ear and which are the spaces that need to be properly cleaned, and all of this can be done in real time. So of course, as we say, innovation has no boundaries. Normally you have to go to a specialist to have your ears cleaned, and they also go through similar techniques, but a certain technique that could be used by the layman, by the normal man, had never been invented beforehand. So that's an interesting discovery. Let's see how many people actually buy it in the long run and how effective it will be. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.